To rule a nation, use justice. To win a battle, cunning. But remember, Wu Wei is the only true way. How do I know this? I will explain. The more rules you have, the more unhappy people are. And the more weapons there are, the worse things happen. The more we want luxuries, the more we abandon simplicity. And the more laws you pass, the more we will break them. So the sage says, I do nothing, and the people come together. By leaving them alone, I let them be on the path. But by not using my power, they become rich in themselves. And if I want nothing, they will return to the essence of their being. This verse is really expansive. There's a lot of ideas drawn in here. I would say one thing that struck me as being a little bit of an umbrella of this verse is the idea of when you let people do things and you remove yourself as a leader, they believe that they did it themselves, even if you were finding ways to lead them that were maybe not so obvious. The best outcome in life is when people or a group of people or society or a family or whatever it is, if they decide that they made the path themselves. Not that you led them and you instructed them go this way, then go that way, so on and so forth. Let them be the ones to find their own way. This is the actual fundamental importance. Because this is a pretty in-depth verse, I think we do ourselves justice by just taking it a little bit paragraph by paragraph and unpacking those things. To rule a nation, use justice. To win a battle, cunning. But remember, Wu Wei is the only true way. So there are ways in which we've spoken before about you can know the true essence of the Tao, and you can know how to flow, and you can understand that stripping away and simplifying life and the way in which you flow with it is the actual true way. However, you can still undertake in some sort of fundamental and natural human qualities, such as sometimes gurus are known to have bouts of anger. They're known to potentially snap at people. They're known to potentially shun people. But there is a superficial level in which those things operate versus the underlying knowledge that there is a truth below those sort of top level human qualities and actions that are taken. The middle part of this verse is about having more rules, more weapons, more luxuries, and more laws. Think about how unhappy and complicated and just sort of oppressive big, thick books of laws feel to a society. Things that a regular person could never unpack or fully understand, and that there are just codified regulations around almost everything, whether you realize it or not. And sometimes here in the US, we talk about the tax code being incredibly complex and confusing for anyone to understand. And in that way, it makes it hard to even file and pay taxes and stay in compliance with those things. And all of these things, rules, weapons, luxuries, and laws, just make life more complex. It just layers on top of what is actually a pretty simple endeavor, life. It layers on top of that all of these things that people have to hold in their head, things that they have to accommodate for, things that they have to sustain or maintain or attribute certain actions to, and that our energy is often spent in a little bit of fear. Fear around, are we breaking the rules? Are we building too many weapons? Are we just in pursuit of luxuries, constantly trying to keep up with the Joneses, as they say? Am I inadvertently in violation of some regulation or some law that I'm just not aware of because, like I said, there are just monstrous books of laws and regulations that we all are supposed to abide by? Those things, I think, do a great disservice to the well-being and the mental health of society as a whole. You may not be able to necessarily feel that you can make a huge impact on that in your individual life, but it's worth at least understanding, realizing, and maybe contemplating on ways in which you can try to demystify some of those things and find ways to still find peace, even if it's just in the acknowledgement of some of your discomfort and dis-ease with all of these things comes from just the mass accumulation of complexities that are generally just unnecessary. And the last chunk of this verse is really around the idea of letting people just live their life and don't feel the need to constantly dictate what they're doing, don't feel the need to constantly control them and rule over them. Let them just return to a fundamental core essence of their being and let them live from there. And if you can do that for yourself, this is one of the reasons why the Eastern religions focus so much on yourself. Do the work on yourself. Because if you can do the work on yourself and understand what you've done to complicate your life and to lead yourself astray, you can then start to understand that you've done that for everybody around you also. And the things that you undo to carve a path, to make way, as Rumi says, to tear down the walls that you've built against things such as simplicity and love and calmness and just being. If you can figure out how to tear down those barriers that you've built to those things, then you will know how to tear down those barriers that you've built as it pertains to those things and other people as well. And this is how you can clear a path and make way for a simpler, more essence and flow-filled way of life.